Ladies and gentlemen, today is March 8th, 2016, and this is the Can Kill Show, episode 284, where we learn to be better artists. My name is Keenan Lafferty, and I would like to welcome you to another show. Today we are going to be jumping into the Winter Wonder Lulu concept, not the title screen, the Winter Wonder Lulu concept for Riot Games and League of Legends, because there's a ton of awesome work, a lot of unseen things that will never see the light of day unless you watch this episode, that I'd like to share with you, and hopefully some tidbits of advice that I can pass down if you are doing design work or concept work for a company or just for yourself. But before we get into that, we need to take a stroll down the lovely lane because you guys have been being awesome and submitting your beautiful art. So if you want to see these for yourself, just type in that tiny URL /CanKaleFanArt. Go like the page, submit your own stuff, and most importantly, come get some cookies. All right, ladies and gentlemen, with all that out of the way, let's go ahead and get into today's talk, because we got some good things to talk about. Good tidbits, good tips and tricks. All right. So the first thing that you see here is the completed concept of Lulu, Winter Wonder Lulu. Everybody's seen this, and it's like, oh, well, isn't that great? This is my favorite skin in League of Legends. Thank you so much, Keenan, for making this. But unfortunately, it does not start like this. It starts like this. And this is every artist's worst nightmare. You open up Photoshop and you pull up that open canvas or that blank canvas, and you're like, all right, it's time to make some art, right? And then you take the stylus and you're like, you can feel this force pushing against it and you can't quite get it to touch the tablet. And then when you do, nothing comes out. You're having art block, right? And it just gets worse and worse and worse until you finally wake up in a cold sweat and you realize it was all just a bad dream. And you're like, oh, that's great. And then you look to the side and then there's another blank canvas staring you in the face. And then you wake up again and then you're like, oh. And then you're sitting in your chair at work because you actually fell asleep. Drank a little too much Powerade and the high fructose corn syrup wore off and then you fell asleep. You conked out. But regardless, this is how every piece starts. And you might be wondering, how do you get inspiration for design elements? And a great artist once said that to create something large, to solve big problems, you need to start small. Start small. And this is where I started with this piece. I started looking for design elements inside of snowflakes, because I've taught you guys many times that a great thing that you want to be looking out for is a good balance between large shapes, medium shapes. See? Okay, so you have like, maybe these are like the medium shapes. And then you have small shapes, small little tiny details that will go throughout the rest of your picture, like little things that will be happening. And snowflakes are a good example of this. In fact, many things that are found in nature are great examples of the design element or the design principle that I always teach you guys about. That small, medium, and large. That's an L, by the way. Small, medium, large. So needless to say, we're creating a snow piece, right? So I decided, hey, let's look at some microscope images of snowflakes, and let's see if we can pull out some interesting design elements from that. So let's go ahead and get into the first things that we did here. Oh yeah, but a bit of story. I'll tease you with this, right? I'll tease you with this beginning part because, whoa, look at that. It's totally different from all the other concepts that I've done. I'm actually drawing light colors. I'm actually started with a dark color, and I'm painting. It's almost like reverse painting. So I'm painting lightness onto a dark canvas. And if you look up at the top left, hey, look at this. What's all this stuff up here? Those are my design elements. Those are me pulling out those little things from the snowflakes that I like, pulling out little designs. But before we get into this, we need to talk about a little story. And that is with the Yordle unification process, right? Because this is one of the last things that I was working on at Riot before I took off working there full-time in the office. Of course, now I work remotely. But this is one of the last things that I did before I took off and took my break to make the comic. And during that time, I was really working closely with Tristana, I just really thought that she had the greatest potential to just move over and to like being more of a Yordle as opposed to this freakish Smurf thing with elf ears. So I put Kennen and I put Tristana next to each other, right? And I thought for the longest time that we needed to make the female Yordles like furry all over, more like Kennen and the other like Rumble and all that stuff. But actually, I found out that the most simple thing that we could do, or the simple solution, was actually just to take their ears from the side of their head, just move them up, and then make them furry. And I was like, oh, hey, this is like really cool. And then I took off, right? And then that was the last thing I ever heard about that. And so when I got the chance to do, this is where it ties in, when I got the chance to do Lulu, Lulu was always one of the Yordles that, when we actually released Lulu, it was the first time that we really started playing around with the idea of unifying the female and the male Yordles to having like similar treatments for like the fur and the skin and the ears. And Lulu always had the biggest ears. She has like these massive ears that stick out further than any of the other female Yordle champs. So I saw this as a good chance or a good opportunity to put the furriness onto the ears and actually just have them stick out and see how it would look. Almost like, and I didn't say anything about it either. I didn't say that I was going to do this. I just said, okay, I'll just submit this and we'll see what happens. We'll see if they like it. And eventually they did. But, okay, so let's get into the actual thing. Okay, now that I told you that whole story and you sat through it, now we can get into it. Okay, so what I have done here is I have gone into those microscopic images of the snowflakes, and I've pulled out a bunch of different design elements that I like. And those can be seen here and here and here. And then what I allow myself to do is I allow my imagination to say, okay, well, maybe this shape right here, maybe this is like a robe. Maybe this could be like a robe in here. And then this piece right here could be like a headpiece. You know, can you see what's happening here? And then Lulu can be right here. And this is like her eyes and then her happy face, right? And she's got these ears that stick out. And this is what I allow my brain to do. Allow your brain to just freely associate with a bunch of different things, a bunch of different designs, and really try to look at these things. Like maybe this could be like Pix. Maybe Pix could have, these are his wings, and he's more like a snowflake dragonfly, you know? Allow your imagination to come up with ideas, I'm pulling out all kinds of different, because the really cool thing about snowflakes is that they all look different, right? No snowflake, every snowflake can be unique and special in its own way. And that comes in really handy for what we're doing here, because we can pull out all kinds of cool designs, and they're all automatically, because they're found in nature, they're always going to have that really nice small, medium, large thing going on. Nice little relationships going on. So that's where I like to start. And you can see over here, I was actually doing, this is like another idea for like a headpiece, and there's her eyes, and now she's evil. And we were playing around with a bunch of different ideas here, because at first I was like, oh, maybe she can be like a wicked witch. Maybe she can be an evil winter sorceress, right? So that's what more so what this one was over here. This one was more of like a dark sorceress with frost powers, right? And this one is just, this is more like exploring the face. Just, again, you really want to just allow yourself to freely create things. And more so, what's most important than anything else on this piece is that I want you guys to actually just pay attention to the, like, just the, what's the word I'm looking for? The simplicity. Like, there's not a lot of detail that's being added into things like this. Yet just creating a shape like this, creating a flow that happens like this. Do you see how nice that little flow line is that goes right into her ear, and then it goes up into this like a headpiece, and then the staff? That's all done just very relaxed. It's very smooth. So don't feel like you need to get in there and really start pulling like lots of shapes out. All you're doing is you're looking for relationships. You're trying to create something. Allow your mind and your imagination to kind of fill those gaps in for you. So, and over here, I really like this one too, because I like the poofiness of the dress and then this big wand. She was almost like a fairy godmother type of thing. I still really like this design, and we'll see a little bit more of that in a little bit. Okay. So, and then over here we had like Ice Queen, right? Ice Queen, Winter Sword, Frost Mage, a bunch of different things that we could come up with, a bunch of different designs that we liked. So let's move on to the next thing. Okay, so you can see over here, now we can begin refining. Now that we have some shapes and some flow that we like, now we can begin refining things like this, because I'm sure if you look at this, this is a familiar thing, I hope, because it's right there. Right over there. So we took that and I said, okay, I'm going to refine that a little bit more, because I like the shape language. I like the relationships that are happening there. Let's go ahead and refine that. And then over here, so now what I'm really starting to do is dig a little bit deeper and refine things to exactly more what they should be. This is more like the ice princess. This is more of, hey, what if there's no ice on her at all? What if it's more just like a winter coat or like a winter clothing type of thing with like a scarf and a cute little hat and stuff like that. And then like Christmas trees growing off of her staff for some reason. Why not? And then this is more like the super wicked witch, the wicked giant icicle hair having Wayna, or Lulu. Wayna was her working title. So a little bit more refinement. Some other things over here, like on the left, where we're still coming up with some new concepts, trying to figure out over here, maybe, hey, what do the sleeves look like? Maybe they have these little cool decorative things that hang down that look like snowflakes. Stuff like that. Also the staff. What is the staff treatment? Coming up with stuff like that. All right, moving on to the next one. Now this one I really like, because this is, remember how I was talking about the Ice Princess? I revisited it right here, and this is personally one of my favorites because of one thing, and that is Buff Pix, baby. Buff Pix. I was so sad that we didn't go forward with this because I thought, oh, this is like so cool. Like Pix can be like the knight in shining armor protecting his lady, protecting the Princess Lulu, right? And I just really liked this design over here, specifically on the right. This was cool. I really, really like this one. But unfortunately, Poros were really in at the time, and they just wanted to make it a Poro. But whatever. I mean, my bosses, they call the shots. All I can do is just give them good ideas. So this is Buff Pix. This is Pix before he worked out. A little bit more dainty, more girly. Just a couple different treatments on that. And especially, I still like this Pix over here too. I like that one as well. So yeah, just refining things, coming up with ideas. And bear in mind, all this stuff is happening while this is happening over days. I'm taking breaks. I'm allowing myself to like stew on ideas. I'm not constantly sitting in front of my computer. I take a moment to get up, walk away from the problems that you're having, and then the solutions will come to you. Okay? And not to mention, it saves your wrist, saves your back, saves your mind. Those are all good things to save. All right. So now we're getting into, now that we're a little bit closer to what we're looking for, I started moving into more refinement along with color. And these are some of my favorite things that I can show you guys today. I really enjoyed doing these. And I still look at these and I really think that they're still good designs. It's not what went through to the final bit, but you can see just how much a skin can really evolve. Like an idea can really evolve over the course of weeks, over the course of days. And it's really fun to just get all these ideas out and then see where it eventually goes. So over here, we have the princess, and then these ones are more like the Ice Witch. This was us going more so for like the evil, kind of sinister side of Lulu and wanting her to exhibit those traits in her skin. But eventually, and there's a little bit down here for what we also needed to concept what she would polymorph her enemies into, right? So they're like, maybe like a winter fox, maybe a Poro, So, and I still like that Poro. I'm usually not into Poros, but I like that one, but I'm biased because it's obviously the one that I did. And then over here was a little bit more refinement on Pix, as well as the staff. Now we're really trying to figure out what the staff is going to be, as well as the hair and the headpiece. And speaking of that, let's go ahead and move into the next thing. Because now it is time to really start pulling out, this is where you start thinking about the sanity of your 3D modeler. Like, what actually is the geometry that goes into making this? How is my 2D drawing going to be translated into a 3D model? So what I'm doing here is I'm trying to go in there and say, okay, look, this thing is 3 pieces, 1, 2, and 3. This isn't the final headpiece, but this is more so trying to figure out from all angles what your skin is actually going to look like. Okay? And then down here, we have a couple different, like, hey, here's like the ice piece with the hat sticking out of it. So now it's more of like a frontal thing. Here's a different thing where it's like an ice crown, and then she's got this big kind of like ball bun looking thing. Just different hairstyles, different heads, different hats. Makes everything great. And different braids too. This was actually really fun. I was studying braids on Google. I typed in all kinds of different braids. I didn't know there was so many different ways you could style your hair. But now, because of this, I know. I have been educated in the ways of braids, in the ways of those, and hair art. hair art, as I will call it. All right. So once we got that done, now we're moving on to, we're getting pretty close. Oh, wait, is this? Oh, this doesn't come until later. My bad. We are, oh yeah, right here. So I sent those off, those last ones, these ones here. I sent these off. And the feedback that I got back was, we really want to see a bunch of different hats. Like, we like the ice thing, but we really feel like we want to push more for like a physical hat as opposed to like an ice element. So that takes us to right here. So I was like, all right, cool. Let's go ahead and get back to what we were doing in the beginning, where we had that dark background, the dark canvas, and drawing on top of it light colors. And for some reason, like, I haven't done it this way since I did this concept, but for some reason I just felt like it really lent itself to the feeling that we were going for here. So, but look, same thing is happening. I'm just experimenting with different colors or different relationships and shapes. And you can see all these different hats, crowns. This one is like her hair wrapped inside of itself. Just a bunch of different designs. Oh, I like this one's actually still really cute. I like that one. So yeah. Oh, this one. This one is totally modeled off of the Twisty Castle from Mario 3. I forget what world it is, but there's a Twisty Castle that takes you up to the Sky World. That's totally where I got that idea. And then down here, we're experimenting with staff designs. And then this, actually, these staff designs ended up translating over, I think it was this one right here, S6. This is what ended up translating over to what would eventually become the final staff. But you can see, just still experimenting with a bunch of different shapes. In fact, this one over here, S8, this one got moved over and I tried it as a hat. So just because you design something as one element doesn't mean that you can't move it to another. You can use just those different shape languages for anything. And this one's still pretty dang cool. Although that looks pretty heavy on her head. And then a couple more ideas for the braids down here. Maybe it's just like a loose braid. It's a little bit curly. Maybe it's one of those braids that kind of wraps the rest of the hair. Again, so many different ways. So many different ways to do your hair. I would have never known. All right, and then that takes us to right here. Right here. So the hat that they ended up liking, I think was, oh yeah, this one was this one right here, H, where it was the crown and then the hair kind of wrapped within itself. So we went forward with that, and I went into color comps, which is a very easy thing to do. Like I think I started off with this blue one, and then I had each of these layers separated, each of these color layers separated. So say like the hair is on one layer, the crown is on one layer, the little gem is on one layer, and then I could go in there and I would just hue shift. I would hue shift each of these to create different types of color comps. Like, hey, how about more of a purple armor with green hair? How about greener, tealish armor with purple hair? And then how about a really purple one? You know, so just a couple different ones. Your color palette is a little bit limited because you're working with like mostly cool colors, but you want to make sure that, do you notice how there's still a little bit of like red, or there's more of like a reddish violet inside of this hair? You want to make sure that you don't have too much of a monochromatic color scheme. You want to have one color, just a hint of one that pulls you back or that balances it out. And luckily for us, Lulu's skin here is peach, so that can act as our grounding color. Or because if it was like a dark blue or like a light blue, then it would all just be very monochromatic. It would look kind of boring. So the next thing, where this went from here, was they liked this design, but they said this helmet is, or her hat or crown, whatever you want to call it, it's not chunky enough. It doesn't have enough like depth to it. In League of Legends, and especially in the characters and armor designs, you can really see like the depth inside of like the trims of the metals, and just like all the materials in those games seem to be very thick. Whereas here, it looks like a very thin material. It's like a thin leather, or even just like, it could be just like a thin sheet of ice. So my coworker Wes did some paint overs on it just to show me exactly what he was talking about. And he's like, so we like this design, but we'd like it to look more like this. And can you see what he's done here? You see how he has changed it from, oh, here I can lay it down like this. So you can see the changes that he's made. He's thickened up the trim, and he's added that embossment to it, or the bevel to it, which is a fancy way of saying that it comes to like a point, right? And it has depth to it. And this is really nice because it reads Like when you look at it in game, you want to make sure you have a clear read on your values. Whereas these, it's pretty good. It's pretty good, but it starts to get a little fuzzy, like in between like the trim and the hair and stuff. Whereas this is much more clear what's going on. The hair is its own shape. Even the values were cleaned up here too. Because the hair is much darker, the armor is lighter, and the skin is lighter. All your values are much easier to read from an in-game angle. So that's why we like this. And then this is the point where they dropped the ball and they said, okay, we want it to be a Poro. I was like, okay, fine, we'll make it a Poro, a flying Poro. Even though I wanted buff picks, I was pushing for buff picks all up until this point. But I was like, okay, fine. They want a Poro, so then we finally get to this point. So I took what I had prior to this, and then I just translated it right over. And I was like, okay, cool. I love that thicker embossment on the material on the outside, on the trim. And and Wes also did this really nice treatment on the staff as well. Because if you look at this staff, it was the one from earlier that I was talking about right here. See? Except it's not an eyeball anymore. It's a floating orb. So we had that. And then Wes did that treatment on it where he just kind of softened it up a little bit. Made it a little bit more playful, not as much sharp and jagged and scary looking. And I really, really like this treatment. So I took that, and it totally fit in with the style of the game. And I refined it to be more like that. Did the Poro picks, did the Whimsy snowman, super easy. Did a little animation. I always love doing little animations for my coworkers, especially for like particles and stuff. And this one, it was just still pictures or still frames of like, hey, this is, and this is another really important thing that a lot of people overlook, is that you also have to design what these particles are going to look like. What does her Whimsy look like? What does the glitter lance look like? What does the shield look like? So having all these things in mind, and like the little sigil that'll appear on the ground when you're all big, what are all those things going to look like? And they did end up translating a little bit differently in the game because the particle artists are smart and they're a lot better at designing the stuff than I am, but this gives us a good start. It gives us a good start and gets our ideas across. And we like that. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen. So I think that is going to end it. Yeah, so I hope you guys enjoyed taking a look at all that stuff with me. Taking a look at Winter Wonder Lulu and finding out a little bit more of the story that went into it, as well as all the unseen things that went into making the skin and just how it evolved over time. And I really think that maybe I really want to do like a fan art of like the princess and buff picks and knight, like the knight in shining armor and Princess Lulu. I think that'd be really cool. I should do a fan art of that. But before we end today's show, we need to say thank you to our amazing sponsors. Thank you, Laura Bashir. Thank you, David Cariello. And thank you, Captain Big Bucks. These are my sponsors on Patreon. Thank you so much to them. Keeping the lights running at night. And thank you to my sponsors of the past for contributing, supporting the show. You guys are so amazing. Just the very fact that we did today's show is because you guys have been supporting so much on Patreon. And speaking of that, if you want to get this PSD for yourself, or rather it's just a collection of the images, all the images that we've looked at here today, you can download them all on Patreon. And if you'd like to go to Patreon, then just go ahead and click on this picture right here. It'll take you over there. You can support the show, get today's PSD, as well as all the other PSDs from the past. And you have a good time with that. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to end it. Thumbs up if you like it, thumbs down if you don't. My name is Ken Lafferty. You guys have a great week. I'll see you next Tuesday. And until then, you guys take care. See ya.